Porter is a surname shared by many Anishinaabe families connected to White Earth Reservation and other Ojibwe reservations in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Many Porter families can trace their history to a man named Duane Porter, who, in the 1840s, came from New York to the territory which later became Minnesota. Our cousins, who are descendants of Lizzie Goodwin Shepherd, or Ma Shepherd as most of us called her, can trace their history from Ma to her mother, Melinda Porter Goodwin Duffy, to her parents, Duane and Mary Porter. In an earlier video in this series, we were introduced to Duane and Mary. In this video, we will learn more about their family. Duane Porter came to the territory which later became Minnesota in the 1840s and married an Ojibwe woman named Munni, or Mary Laprairie, a descendant of the old fur trader Joseph Duchesne Laprairie. Duane's marriage to Mary Laprairie is documented in the St. Croix, Wisconsin marriages on the 5th of February, 1849. Duane and Mary Porter settled together with Mary's family, the Laprairies, in the Ojibwe village of Chengwatana and made their home there for decades. In 50 Years in the Northwest, William Henry Carman Folsom wrote about Chengwatana. Chengwatana. This town derived its name from the Chippewa words Chengwa, pine, and Tana, city, applied to an Indian village which from time immemorial had been located near the mouth of Cross Lake. This locality had long been a rallying point for Indians and traders. When the writer visited it in 1846, it had the appearance of an ancient place of resort. Half-breeds and whites with Indian wives settled here, and in 1852 there were several log houses and a hotel kept by one Ebenezer Ayer. There was also a dam built for sluicing logs. Among the early settlers were Duane Porter, George Goodwin, and others. The old Ojibwe village of Chengwatana, the home of Duane and Mary Porter, was not located at the present-day township of Chengwatana, Minnesota. It was located near present-day Pine City, along the lower course of the Snake River, near the outlet at Cross Lake. Many descendants of the old fur trader Joseph Duchesne Laprairie, who had lived at times near Frederick Ayer and William Boutwell's Presbyterian mission on the east side of Lake Pekegama, made their home at Chengwatana. In his later years, Duane and Mary's son, Duane Frank, who is the well-known missionary Reverend D. F. Porter, wrote of the family's early years in a manuscript held at the archives of the Minnesota Annual Conference, United Methodist Church in Minneapolis. He wrote, "The author of this account was born on December 20th, 1850, in a log cabin on the site of the present city of Taylor's Falls, Minnesota, on the St. Croix River. Mother was a Chippewa Indian woman, and father was a mixed-blood Irish from New York, engaged in the pineries along the streams. We lived for the most part in a birch teepee, subsisting on wild game, fish, maple sugar, wild rice, and fruits. When my father was away from home, we often had to gather water rushes for the edible roots, acorns, butternuts, hickory nuts, berries, a kind of wild potato, greens, and the sap of birch and poplar trees with which to feed the family. In the year 1852, my parents moved north to Pekegama Lake, a few miles west of Pine City, where our family was brought up. There was an Indian missionary by the name of Mr. Boutwell. Soon after this time, my mother learned to read in his school and joined the church. I was 14 years old at that time and will later relate my mother's conversion. We lived during my early childhood at the Indian village of Pekegama Lake, and when 10 years of age, the family moved to another Indian village called Chengwatana, Minnesota, near where Pine City is now located. This was on the trail between Lake Superior and St. Paul, Minnesota. When I was 13 years of age, my father broke his leg while logging in the woods and was badly crippled, so that I became the chief supporter of the family. I worked for 50 cents a day that summer on the government road, and the following winter received $12 a month and my board in a logging camp. In the spring, we drove the logs down the St. Croix River to Stillwater, Minnesota, and I returned home with enough money to buy a log house for the family. There was a large family of us, and all we children had to work very hard to help provide for our parents and the younger children. Duane's leg injury and his large growing family are documented in the records. An 1863 enrollment list of Civil War draft registrations for Chengwatana shows Duane Porter's name crossed out and a hurt leg noted. The Minnesota State Census of Pine County in 1865 shows Duane and Mary's family with 7 children. They are Duane Jr., shown elsewhere as Frank, or Duane Frank, and later known as the Reverend D.F. Porter. Second, Nelson, who was born about 1853. Third, John, or Jack, or John D. Porter, as he is commonly listed in other records. Fourth, Alexis, shown elsewhere as Lexi, Alex, and sometimes Alexander, but most commonly recorded as Alexis when his English name is given. Fifth, Albert. Sixth, Isabella, or Isabel, who is also known as Lizzie. And seventh, Hiram, listed elsewhere and more commonly as Scott H. In 1870, the U.S. Census shows the family in Chengwatana with 9 children, adding the 8th child, Melinda, listed here as Marinda, and the 9th, Edwin. In 1875, Chengwatana shows the family again with 9 children, but son Nelson has passed, and the 10th child, Charles, or Charlie, has been born. In 1880, Chengwatana shows the family with 6 children at home. Duane Frank is living in his own household with his wife Eliza, her English name, and John D's wife, Susan Batiste, is in nearby Kettle River. Isabel, who married Rodney Boutwell, and Scott are farming in Cass County, Dakota Territory. At home are Alexis, Albert, Melinda, Edwin, Charlie, and the family's 11th child, Nelson, who was born about 1876. In 1885, the last census before the family's removal to White Earth and other reservations, Scott is back home in Chengwatana with the youngest 4, Melinda, Edwin, Charlie, and Nelson. Isabel and Rodney Boutwell are still in Dakota Territory. Duane Frank with his wife Eliza, and Alexis with his wife Maggie, her English name, are in Chengwatana in their own households. John is in Kettle River with his wife Susan, and Albert may be working near Stillwater or may already be at Fond du Lac. In this video, we learned about the family of Duane and Mary, or Munny Porter. In the next installment in this video series, we will explore Duane Porter's origins and answer the question, who is Duane's father?